The gleaming white halls of the Galactic Science Academy buzzed with the usual mix of floating, crawling, and walking aliens from across the known universe. Among them, Dr. Ann Thompson stood out not because of any unusual features, but because she was remarkably normal-looking by most standards. Her simple white lab coat and container of Earth specimens made her look like any other scientist, except for being human. She checked her digital map again, trying to find Laboratory Block C7. The Academy's building was a maze of twisting corridors and floating platforms, designed to accommodate species from every conceivable gravity level and atmospheric preference. "You must be the new Earth botanist," a melodic voice spoke from behind her. Anne turned to find herself face to face with a tall, slender alien whose skin seemed to ripple with gentle waves of blue light. "I'm Blue. Well, that's what humans can call me. My real name involves bioluminescent patterns that human eyes can't fully process." Anne smiled, relieved to finally meet her assigned research partner. "Yes, I'm Dr. Ann Thompson. Though just Ann is fine. I brought some samples from Earth that I think you'll find interesting." She lifted the container she was carrying, its clear walls revealing an array of carefully preserved plant specimens. Blue's skin pulsed with bright patterns of curiosity. "Fascinating. Let's get these to our lab right away. I've read about Earth's plant life, but I've never seen any up close." The laboratory they entered was a marvel of alien technology. Floating cultivation pods lined the walls, each maintaining different atmospheric conditions. Holographic displays showed microscopic views of various specimens, while robotic arms tended to the needs of different plants. "Here," Anne said, carefully unpacking her specimens. "These represent some of the most common flowering plants from Earth. We've got roses, tulips, sunflowers, and even some basic grass species." She arranged the samples on a nearby examination table. Blue moved closer, her skin now pulsing with rapid waves of excitement. "These are natural. Your planet produces these without any genetic engineering." She leaned in to examine a red rose, her light patterns becoming more intense. "Completely natural," Anne confirmed, enjoying Blue's reaction. "Earth's evolution took some interesting paths. These plants developed these features over millions of years. But they're so intricate," Blue whispered, using a scanning device to take readings. "The symmetry, the color patterns, the delicate structural engineering. Surely these were designed for something important." Anne nodded, preparing to explain plant reproduction, but was interrupted by a group of alien scientists who had noticed the commotion. They crowded around the table, their various appendages gesturing at the flowers. "Remarkable construction. Look at the precision of these components. The color distribution is mathematically perfect." Blue's skin was now glowing so brightly that Anne had to squint. "These would make incredible decorative pieces for the upcoming Galactic Art Showcase," Blue mused, already taking detailed scans of each specimen. Anne opened her mouth to explain that these were actually reproductive organs, not art pieces, but another wave of excited aliens pushed forward to examine the samples. She decided the biology lesson could wait until things calmed down a bit. "The humans must have incredible manufacturing capabilities," one floating alien commented, its tentacles waving in appreciation. "Actually," Anne tried again, "these are completely natural." "Natural." Blue's skin flickered with patterns that Anne's translator rendered as disbelief. "You mean your planet automatically manufactures these?" "Well, not exactly manufactures," Anne began, but Blue was already carefully placing some specimens into a preservation field. "We must study these further," Blue declared. "The applications for biomimicry alone could advance our technology by decades." Her skin was now displaying patterns of deep scientific interest, mixed with what Anne's translator suggested was artistic appreciation. Anne realized that correcting the misunderstanding might take more time and patience than she had initially planned. As she watched Lou carefully categorizing the flowers by their engineering complexity, she couldn't help but smile. This was going to be an interesting assignment indeed. 3 days after the initial specimen display, Blue stood alone in the laboratory, her skin pulsing with gentle waves of fascination. The earth flowers had been carefully arranged in environmental stasis pods, each one preserved at the peak of its bloom. She moved from pod to pod, taking detailed scans and making notes on her floating holographic display. The red rose particularly caught her attention. Under the laboratory's advanced scanning equipment, its structure seemed even more impressive than before. The perfectly spiraled petals, the delicate stems, and the small pointed structures at the center all spoke of masterful design to her alien eyes. Such beautiful ornamentation, Blue murmured, her skin flickering with appreciation. She zoomed in on the flower's center, studying what she believed to be purely decorative features. The stamens and pistils, which any Earth child would recognize as reproductive parts, appeared to her as artistic flourishes. She made another note. Humans clearly value symmetry in their decorative creations. The central components appear to be added purely for aesthetic balance. The laboratory door slid open with a soft hiss, and another alien scientist named Green, again a simplified translation, floated in. Unlike Blue's humanoid form, Green was a collection of shifting geometric shapes that changed colors based on emotional state. Still studying the human artifacts, Green asked, currently forming a curious pentagon shape. Yes, Blue's skin pulsed excitedly. I've made some fascinating discoveries about their artistic preferences. Look at this. She gestured to the rose. See how they've included these tiny yellow structures in the center. Purely decorative, but they catch the light beautifully. Green shifted closer, their form reorganizing into an observational octagon. Remarkable. Have you considered submitting these to the Galactic Art Showcase? The exhibition committee is always looking for examples of advanced engineering from newly contacted species. Blue's skin lit up with sudden inspiration. That's brilliant. These would be perfect for the artistic engineering category. She began carefully collecting several specimens, making sure to maintain their stasis fields. The humans clearly created these as displays of their engineering and artistic capabilities. Meanwhile, Anne was in another section of the academy, completely unaware of what was happening to her research specimens. She was busy preparing a presentation on Earth's plant biology, including detailed explanations of flower reproduction. Her slides included microscopic images of pollen, cross-sections of pistils, and diagrams of plant reproductive cycles. Back in the lab, Blue had already submitted the application forms for the art showcase. Her submission description read, Human Decorative Engineering, an exhibition of Earth's artistic manufacturing capabilities. Should we inform Dr. Thompson? Green asked, their shape shifting to a slightly concerned hexagon. Blue's skin flickered dismissively. Of course, I'm sure she'll be delighted to see her species' artistic achievements recognized. I'll tell her once everything is arranged. She carefully packed the specimens into a transport container. These will be the centerpiece of the exhibition. Just imagine, visitors from across the galaxy admiring human engineering. Green shifted colors thoughtfully. The detail work is extraordinary. How do they achieve such precision in mass production? That's one of the mysteries I'm still trying to solve, Blue admitted, her skin patterns showing deep concentration. The internal structures are incredibly complex. Perhaps they're some kind of entertainment device, or maybe they're meant to demonstrate human manufacturing capabilities. As she secured the last specimen, Blue's skin glowed with pride. She had already planned how to display them, floating in anti-gravity fields, slowly rotating to show off every intricately engineered detail. The specially designed lighting would highlight what she believed to be the artistic embellishments, unaware that she was actually planning to showcase plant reproductive organs as fine art. The exhibition opens in 2 days, Blue said, her skin pulsing with excitement. I should start working on the information plaques. Human decorative engineering, a symphony of design and function. If only she knew what those functions actually were. The Galactic Art Showcase filled the Academy's grand exhibition hall, a massive space with a transparent dome ceiling showing the stars above. Beings from across the galaxy floated, walked, and glided between displays, their various appendages gesturing at the artworks around them. Blue stood proudly beside her display, her skin glowing with excitement. The Earth flowers floated in perfect anti-gravity bubbles, rotating slowly to show off every angle. Special lighting made them seem to glow from within, highlighting what she still believed to be purely decorative features. And here we have the crowning achievement of human decorative engineering. Blue announced to a gathering crowd of alien visitors. Notice the perfect symmetry of these red specimens, which humans call roses. The audience murmured appreciatively, their various sensory organs focused on the floating flowers. A tall crystalline being shifted closer, its faceted surface reflecting rainbow patterns across the floor. Fascinating construction, the crystalline alien said. The humans must have remarkable manufacturing facilities to produce such intricate items in mass quantities. Blue's skin pulsed with academic pride. Indeed. Look at these smaller yellow components in the center. She zoomed in on a stamen with the display's holographic system. Such attention to detail, adding these purely for aesthetic balance. More aliens gathered around the display, their reactions ranging from impressed clicks to astonished color changes. A group of floating gas-based beings formed excited spiral patterns as they observed the specimens. But what is their purpose? Asked a six-limbed alien with compound eyes. We believe they're primarily demonstration pieces, Blue explained confidently, her skin patterns showing scholarly authority. Examples of human engineering and artistic capabilities. See how they've even included these tiny grain-like structures. She highlighted the pollen. Purely decorative, of course. The crowd grew larger. News spread through the exhibition hall about the remarkable human artifacts. Several alien scientists began taking detailed scans, discussing possible manufacturing techniques that could achieve such results. The variety is impressive, noted Green, who had joined the exhibition to support Blue. Look at these larger yellow specimens. They gestured toward a sunflower. The mathematical precision in the seed pattern arrangement. Actually, they're not seeds, Blue corrected, her skin flickering with what she thought was knowledgeable authority. They appear to be decorative nodules, probably designed to demonstrate human microengineering capabilities. The exhibition's head curator, a being made of shifting shadows and light, glided over to inspect the display. This is remarkable, they said, their form rippling with appreciation. We must feature this in the evening's main presentation. Would you be willing to give a speech about these human achievements? Blue's skin lit up with patterns of joy and honor. Of course. I've been studying these specimens for days. I'd be happy to share my findings about human decorative engineering. Meanwhile, in another part of the academy, Anne was finally finishing her detailed presentation on plant reproduction. She packed up her notes, feeling satisfied with her work. I should show this to Blue tomorrow, she thought. She'll find the reproductive mechanisms of earth flowers fascinating. Back at the exhibition, Blue was now addressing an even larger crowd. Holographic displays showed magnified views of the flowers' reproductive organs, which she continued to misinterpret as artistic elements. Notice how they created these delicate structures to catch light, she said, highlighting a pistil, and these small sacs that release a fine powder, clearly a sophisticated air freshening system. The crowd responded with appreciative gestures, tentacles, and color changes. Several academic journals had already requested permission to publish articles about human decorative engineering achievements. As the evening proceeded, the exhibition became more crowded. Artists, engineers, and scientists from across the galaxy studied the flowers with growing admiration, each adding their own misinterpretations to Blue's already incorrect analysis. None of them realized they were essentially admiring the plant equivalent of a dating app profile. Anne walked through the Academy's corridors, carrying her freshly prepared presentation on plant reproduction. She looked forward to sharing it with Blue, especially the detailed slides about flower anatomy. As she passed by the main exhibition hall, she noticed an unusually large crowd. "Come see the amazing human engineering display," a voice announced from inside. "Witness their mastery of decorative manufacturing." Anne paused. Something about that sounded oddly familiar. She changed direction and headed toward the growing noise of excited aliens. As she got closer, she heard another voice. This one she recognized as Blue's. "And here we can see the intricate artistic patterns humans have engineered into their decorative pieces." Anne pushed through the crowd, accidentally brushing past several gaseous beings and nearly tripping over a rolling spherical alien. When she finally reached the front, she stopped dead in her tracks. Her mouth fell open. There, floating in anti-gravity fields, were her research specimens. Her carefully preserved flowers rotated slowly in the display cases, while Blue enthusiastically pointed out their engineered features to the admiring crowd. "Notice the perfect symmetry of these yellow protrusions," Blue was saying, her skin glowing with academic pride as she pointed to a flower's stamens, clearly designed for maximum aesthetic appeal. "Blue," Anne called out weakly. What are you doing with my research specimens?" Blue's skin lit up even brighter when she saw Anne. "Dr. Thompson, perfect timing. I was just explaining to everyone about Earth's amazing decorative engineering capabilities. Your species' manufacturing skills are truly remarkable." Anne watched in growing disbelief as Blue zoomed in on a lily's reproductive organs with the holographic display. "See how they've crafted these powder dispensers," Blue continued, "obviously for releasing pleasant scents into the air." "Those aren't powder dispensers," Anne tried to interrupt. "Those air. And look at this clever design." Blue gestured enthusiastically at a flower's pistil, a perfect example of human artistic architecture. "Actually," Anne raised her voice slightly, "that's a reproductive organ." The crowd went silent. Even the gaseous aliens stopped their excited swirling. Blue's skin flickered with confusion patterns. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Anne cleared her throat and held up her presentation tablet. "These aren't manufactured items, Blue. They're natural reproductive structures. These flowers are how many Earth plants reproduce." The crystalline alien who had been taking detailed engineering notes suddenly developed a crack from shock. But they're so beautiful," Blue protested, her skin now showing patterns of confusion and disbelief. "They can't be reproductive organs. They're clearly decorative." Anne connected her tablet to the exhibition's main display system. A giant hologram appeared above the crowd, showing a detailed cross-section of a flower. "These artistic yellow protrusions are called stamens. They produce pollen. That's the aesthetic powder you mentioned. And this clever architectural structure is called a pistil. It's how the plants receive the pollen for fertilization." The crowd of aliens shifted uncomfortably. Several changed colors rapidly, one floating gas being condensed in embarrassment. "You mean," Blue's skin had turned a pale, shocked shade, "you mean we've been displaying reproductive organs as art?" Anne nodded. Yes, you have. And these aren't manufactured at all. No, they grow naturally on Earth. They've evolved over millions of years." Blue's skin began flickering with what Anne's translator indicated was a mix of embarrassment and fascination. "So when I wrote in the exhibition guide about humans mass-producing these in factories, nature is the factory," Anne said gently. She looked around at the stunned crowd. "Would you like me to explain how they actually work? I have a whole presentation ready." The assembled aliens looked at each other uncertainly. Then Green, who had been quietly changing shape in the background, formed into what appeared to be a raised hand. "Yes," they said. "I think we would all very much like to know what we've actually been admiring for the past few hours." Anne smiled and opened her presentation. This was going to be an interesting lecture indeed. The exhibition hall had transformed into an impromptu lecture theater. Anne stood at the center, surrounded by a growing crowd of aliens, while her holographic presentations floated in the air around them. Blue sat in the front, her skin showing patterns of intense concentration mixed with lingering embarrassment. So, Anne began, zooming in on a flower's cross-section. What you thought was a scent dispenser is actually called an anther. It produces pollen, which contains the plant's male reproductive cells. A wave of surprised murmurs rippled through the audience. Several alien scientists who had been taking notes about advanced human manufacturing hurriedly began correcting their documents. "But they're so elaborate," said a hovering cloud-like being. "Surely they don't need to be this complex just for reproduction." Anne smiled. "Actually, these beautiful features serve very specific purposes. The bright colors and patterns attract pollinators, other living creatures that help transfer pollen between flowers." She showed a video of a bee visiting different flowers. The aliens watched in fascination as the insect moved from bloom to bloom, carrying pollen on its body. "Your planet has automated pollination drones?" Blue asked, her skin flickering with curiosity. "No, these are natural creatures too. We call them bees." Another shocked murmur went through the crowd. The crystalline alien who had cracked earlier developed several new stress lines. "Are you saying," green shifted into an exclamation mark shape, "that your planet has naturally evolved a cooperative system between multiple species just for reproduction?" Exactly. Anne's enthusiasm was becoming contagious. "And that's not all. Watch this time-lapse video." The holographic display showed a flower opening from bud to full bloom. The aliens watched in amazement as the petals unfurled and the reproductive organs matured. "This is all done without any technological intervention?" Blue asked, her skin now pulsing with patterns of wonder. "No genetic engineering, no manufacturing process. Pure evolution," Anne confirmed. "Over millions of years, flowers developed these strategies to ensure successful reproduction. The beauty we see is actually a side effect of what works best for attracting pollinators." A small spherical alien rolled forward. "But why make the reproductive organs so visible? On my world, we keep ours hidden in protective chambers." Anne tried not to laugh. "Well, flowers need their reproductive parts to be accessible. The whole point is to share genetic material with other flowers of the same species." She displayed another diagram, this one showing pollen traveling from one flower to another. When pollen from one flower reaches the pistil of another, fertilization can occur. That's how we get seeds, which grow into new plants. Blue's skin was now showing entirely new patterns that Anne's translator couldn't even interpret. "So when I wrote in the exhibition catalog about the artistic powder dispensers being a triumph of human engineering, you were actually praising plant reproductive organs." Anne completed the thought gently. "But don't feel bad. You're not the first to admire their beauty. Humans have been fascinated by flowers for thousands of years too." The alien audience was now fully engaged, asking questions faster than Anne could answer them. "Do all Earth plants reproduce this way? Are there flowers that glow in the dark? Can flowers communicate with each other? Do you have flowers bigger than this room?" Anne handled each question patiently, her presentation expanding to include more examples and explanations. Even the exhibition curators had stopped trying to maintain order and were simply taking notes. Blue, whose embarrassment had finally given way to genuine scientific curiosity, raised a glowing appendage. "Dr. Thompson, would you be willing to help me prepare a corrected version of the exhibition? One that explains what these really are?" Anne smiled warmly. "Of course. Though maybe we should keep some of your original descriptions. You weren't entirely wrong about their artistic value. Nature just happened to be the artist." Blue's skin flickered with what Anne was beginning to recognize as humor. "Perhaps we should change the exhibition title from Human Decorative Engineering to Earth's Natural Engineering." "That's perfect," Anne agreed. "After all, evolution might be the greatest engineer of all." The crystalline alien promptly developed another crack. News of the flower revelation spread through the Galactic Science Academy like wildfire, or, as one gaseous alien put it, like an expanding nebula. 1 week after the exhibition incident, the Academy's main lecture hall was packed with representatives from dozens of alien species, all eager to share their own reproductive biology stories. Blue, who had recovered from her initial embarrassment, now sat beside Anne at the speakers panel. Her skin glowed with a new pattern that Anne's translator identified as excited scientific curiosity. After the success of our revised flower exhibition, Blue addressed the crowd. We realized something important. Many species have been misinterpreting each other's biological features for centuries. A tall, tree-like alien stood up. Indeed, we always thought human hair was some kind of advanced temperature sensor array. Anne tried not to laugh. No, though that would be useful. It's actually dead protein filaments that evolve for protection and temperature regulation. Speaking of misunderstandings, a floating orb of light chimed in. Remember when the Crystalline Society thought human tears were a form of chemical warfare? The crystalline alien in the audience developed yet another stress crack, their surface catching the light in embarrassed rainbow patterns. Blue's skin flickered with amusement. These misunderstandings have led to an amazing opportunity. We're establishing a new department, Comparative Reproductive Biology. Dr. Thompson has agreed to be our first Earth consultant. The announcement was met with enthusiastic gestures from the assembled aliens. Several gaseous beings formed excited spiral patterns, while the tree-like aliens rustled their branches in approval. But first, Anne said, standing up, we should clear up some other misconceptions. No, human babies don't come from eggs laid in space. No, human navels aren't communication ports. And no, human eyebrows aren't parasitic organisms. The disappointed sigh from several aliens suggested these had been widely held beliefs. However, Blue added, her skin pulsing brightly, what we've learned about Earth's reproductive diversity is fascinating. Did you know they have plants that can clone themselves, and others that can change their reproductive parts based on environmental conditions? A small blob-like alien oozed forward. That's nothing. On my world, we reproduce by splitting into perfect copies of ourselves while singing in ultraviolet frequencies. This sparked a wave of excited sharing. Aliens began describing their reproductive methods, each more bizarre than the last. Anne frantically took notes as she learned about crystal budding, gas cloud merging, and something involving quantum entanglement that she couldn't quite understand. You see, Blue said, her skin showing patterns of scientific joy. Every misunderstanding is an opportunity to learn. Yes, I mistook flower reproductive organs for artwork, but that led to this amazing exchange of knowledge. A holographic display showed the newly revised exhibition, now titled The Art of Natural Selection, Earth's Flowering Plants. The footage of bees pollinating flowers played alongside demonstrations of alien reproductive methods from across the galaxy. We've even started a new research project, Anne added. We're studying how different species across the galaxy have evolved various ways to make reproduction successful. It turns out beauty and function often go hand in hand, no matter what planet you're from. Blue's skin flickered with what Anne now recognized as pride. And to think, this all started because I thought a flower's reproductive organs were decorative toys. Well, Anne said with a smile, they are pretty showy. Earth plants learned long ago that sometimes the best way to ensure successful reproduction is to advertise. The crowd laughed, or made their species equivalent of laughing sounds. Even the crystalline alien managed a chiming noise, though they immediately developed another small crack. As the session continued, more aliens came forward to share their stories of biological misunderstandings. The tree-like alien admitted they once thought human walking was a form of interpretive dance. A floating gas being confessed, they had believed human clothing was actually a symbiotic organism. Blue's skin showed complex patterns of contentment as she watched the exchange of ideas. Perhaps, she said to Anne quietly, mistakes aren't always such bad things after all. No, Anne agreed, watching a blob-like alien enthusiastically demonstrate its splitting reproduction technique. Sometimes they're the beginning of something wonderful. Just then, A new alien entered the hall, looking excited. "Hey, what are these round white things in the cafeteria?" "Some kind of decorative spheres." Anne and Blue looked at each other. "Those are eggs," they said in unison. Here we go again. 1 year after the famous flower incident, the Galactic Science Academy had changed dramatically. The newly established Earth Botany Department occupied an entire wing, its halls filled with carefully maintained Earth plants and excited alien researchers. Blue, now the department's co-head alongside Anne, stood in her office, her skin glowing with pride as she looked at the wall of achievements. Holographic displays showed the most popular research papers of the year. Why Earth plants put their reproductive organs on display. A study in evolution. Comparative reproduction across the galaxy, from crystal formation to flower power. Common biological misunderstandings. A guide to not embarrassing yourself. Her office door slid open, and Anne walked in carrying what appeared to be a large wrapped package. "Happy 1-year anniversary of the Great Flower Misunderstanding," Anne announced cheerfully. Blue's skin flickered with patterns of amusement and nostalgia. "I still can't believe I wrote that exhibition catalog. Marvel at humanity's engineering prowess in creating these decorative pieces. How did you not laugh at me immediately?" "Well," Anne grinned, "you weren't entirely wrong. Nature is quite the engineer." The department had become famous across the galaxy, but not just for its scientific work. It had sparked a whole movement of cultural exchange and understanding. Species that had previously hidden their biological processes out of shame now openly shared their reproductive methods, leading to unprecedented advances in xenobiology. "I have something for you," Blue said, her skin showing excitement patterns. She pressed a button, and a section of the wall slid open. Inside was a beautiful sculpture, clearly inspired by earth flowers, but made entirely of glowing alien materials. The petals shifted colors slowly, while the center contained a complex crystalline structure that seemed to dance with light. "I worked with artists from 12 different species to create this," Blue explained. "It's called Understanding Blooms. Each part represents a different species' interpretation of reproduction and beauty." Anne walked around the sculpture in amazement. The crystalline alien, who had finally learned to control their stress cracks, had contributed the central structure. Gaseous artists had added shifting color patterns within the petals. Even the blob-like species had participated, creating a subtly moving base that seemed to pulse with life. "It's beautiful," Anne said, "and scientifically accurate too. I see you included proper reproductive structures for each species represented." "Well, I learned my lesson about misidentifying reproductive organs." Blue's skin flickered with humorous embarrassment. "Now open your gift." Anne unwrapped the package to find a thick book titled "The Complete Guide to Not Assuming Things Are Toys, a Xenobiologist's Handbook." She burst out laughing when she saw Blue listed as the author. "I thought it might help other researchers avoid my mistake," Blue explained, her skin showing patterns of both humor and wisdom. Chapter 1 is, "If it's pretty, it might be private," a cautionary tale about Earth flowers. Just then, a young alien researcher burst into the office, their tentacles waving excitedly. "Dr. Thompson." "Blue, you have to see this. We just received new specimens from Earth." They rushed to the research lab, where a crowd had gathered around a new display case. Inside were several bright, colorful objects. "These are amazing," a gaseous being exclaimed. "Such intricate engineering." Blue and Anne looked at each other. "What exactly are you looking at?" Anne asked carefully. "These beautiful human artifacts." The young researcher pointed excitedly. "They must be some kind of status symbols or maybe ceremonial objects." Anne leaned forward and couldn't help but laugh. Inside the case were several peacock feathers. "Well," she said, sharing a knowing look with Blue, "you might want to read Chapter 1 of that new handbook before you write up your report." Blue's skin displayed her newly developed pattern for "Here we go again." "Should you tell them, or should I?" "Together," Anne suggested. "After all, the best discoveries are shared ones. As they prepared to explain yet another of Earth's flashy reproductive strategies to their amazed colleagues, both Anne and Blue reflected on how one simple misunderstanding had led to so much positive change. Sometimes the best scientific discoveries happen not when you were right, but when you were wonderfully, spectacularly wrong. And somewhere in the Academy's halls, a crystalline alien developed one last happy crack.